Chapter 6, Developing Your Academic Writing Skills. Overview. This chapter provides a brief introduction to academic writing. We describe the importance of planning when writing and highlight some potential pitfalls, particularly with respect to referencing and plagiarism. Introduction. Writing well is a key skill for a doctor. Developing this skill now will stand you in good stead for writing educational materials, research articles, patient information leaflets, and even the odd book chapter. Your school will run academic writing courses. You should make an effort to go to one of these courses and apply what you learn as quickly as possible. This section gives a brief introduction to writing an essay, but isn't intended to replace some expert tutoring. You will find whole books on how to write an essay in your library. We reference some in the further reading section of this chapter. It would be worthwhile reading one. Most of the academic writing that you are asked to do at medical school will be set assignments that you write in your own time, either as essays or reflective commentaries or other documents. In this chapter, we will specifically refer to essays, but the same principles apply to the other forms of academic writing. There are some simple steps to go through to help you construct a winning essay, and in the next couple of pages, we have tried to identify one approach. I really found it difficult to get my thoughts and ideas down on paper in a way that others appreciated. The course that my library ran really helped me to do this. Human, first year medical student, collecting information. If you have read the chapter on note taking, you will see lots of techniques that you can use here. You will first either collect your existing notes together and decide what is relevant to the essay, or you will search sources afresh for the essay. Try and do all the searching and reading you need before you start the essay, as otherwise you might not realize that the whole focus needs to change until you are halfway through writing. Remember crucially to record sources so that you can reference them appropriately. Use your own words to make notes, and if you write down any direct quotes, put them in inverted commas in your notes so that you know that you will need to treat them as direct quotes in your essay. Organize all your information in one place, perhaps as a concept map or mind map, and look for themes that answer the question. Look also for contrasting information that you might highlight as an area of uncertainty. The message. Decide on what the key points are that you want to cover and decide in what order you would like them to occur. Often there will be one or two key central messages that you want to get across. In this book, for example, the key messages that we are trying to get across are that the student is the most important person in the learning process. That learning how to learn is an active process which requires deliberate practice, and that knowing how you learn results in better outcomes. Your message may be very clear to you. Perhaps you want to argue that drug company advertising should be banned, or perhaps that improving communication skills in doctors will save money in patient care. Try and choose an interesting key message, something with a slant. You can then use your essay to explain both sides of the argument, and through this to justify your stance. Constructing an overview. You might construct your overview using a flow chart or some sentences, or even adapt your concept map from your notes. The patchwork method can also be used, where you make a box for each section of the essay and write key points within each box. You might start the whole process off with a brainstorming session, annotate the session from your reading, organize it in order to answer the question, and then further annotate it to make a detailed paragraph plan. However you go about it, most essays will be divided up into an introduction, a body, conclusions, and references. The body might be further subdivided either explicitly using headings or implicitly using the paragraph contents. Make sure that you keep looking back at the question or topic throughout the writing of your essay, and especially at the overview stage. It is easy to get sidetracked into answering a different question to the one that you were given. The trick to writing an essay is to spend plenty of time planning it, working out what goes where. That makes the writing easy. Roger, fourth year medical student. The paragraphs. You should now have planned the different sections, the things that you want to cover in each section, and the order that you wish to cover them. It is time to start writing. In general, one idea should go in one paragraph. Often this will form the first sentence of the paragraph, and the rest of the text will elaborate on it. This rule of thumb will make it easier for the reader to see your main arguments and their justification. Unfortunately, this approach can come across as a little disjointed, so think about adding a linked sentence at the end of one paragraph or at the start of the next. You might, for example, see the first half of the first sentence of this paragraph as a link between these two paragraphs. If your two paragraphs can't link together, then you probably need to go back to your plan and see if you need to rearrange the order that the key points come in order to produce a more fluent document. My tutor told me that my paragraphs were all over the place. She showed me how I could change their order to make a story flow better and add a sentence here and there to link them together. I was really impressed at the finished product. Ingrid intercalated BSc student. Examples of linked sentences at the end of a paragraph or start of the next might include. However, this opinion is not shared by all authors. Next paragraph, Roger Lewis argues that, of course, syphilis is not the only cause of what-like growths around the anus. Next paragraph, genital warts were first described in. In this way, Wilson felt he had proven the cause of diabetes. Next paragraph, many other authors at this time also considered that diabetes was caused by an imbalance of the humors. Next paragraph, these changes have resulted in. Back to the drawing board. Depending how much of an obsessive planner you are, you might find that new themes or realizations occur to you while you are writing. If this happens, you should go back to your plan and see how it fits in. You might need to move your paragraphs around to build a new argument for your new point. Start at the middle, end with the start. In general, it is useful to end by writing the introduction, which provides the necessary background, relevance, and lays out the main arguments, and then finally with the conclusions, which should draw the whole essay together. Active or passive. One of the dilemmas in academic writing is whether to write it in an active or passive style. Passive styles seem more academic, and yet there is considerable evidence that active styles are more readable. Consider the following two introductions. Communication skills are essential to professional life as a doctor. In this essay, I will demonstrate from the literature that poor communication skills result in significant costs, not only in terms of worse patient outcomes and in terms of litigation, but also in terms of a social cost to the population as a whole and the trust that it puts in doctors. I will then describe the wide body of evidence that shows that clinical communication skills can be improved through training, and will go on to argue for the benefits of mandatory training of doctors in clinical communication skills, including its cost effectiveness. Or communication skills are essential to professional life as a doctor. In this paper, the evidence from the literature will be explored to demonstrate that poor communication skills result in significant costs, not only in terms of worse patient outcomes and in terms of litigation, but also in terms of a social cost to the population as a whole and the trust that it puts in doctors. A wide body of evidence will be reviewed, showing that clinical communication skills can be improved through training, and finally a clear argument will be built that the benefits of mandatory training of doctors in clinical communication skills are considerable and would represent a cost-effective intervention. Figure 6.1 Overview of Essay Writing. Ensure you understand the question, topic. Collect your facts carefully. Decide on your key message. Write an overall plan. Write a paragraph plan. Write the paragraphs. Write and review. The first introduction represented an active style. The second introduction, a passive style, the evidence, will be explored. Experiment with both approaches and ask your tutors if there is a preferred style in your school. Hopefully, the first introduction demonstrates to you that an active style can be used and still make a compelling academic argument. Plagiarism and referencing. Plagiarism. Plagiarism and referencing is not a focus of the book, but deserves a mention here. If you write down someone else's ideas, you must acknowledge them through referencing. Otherwise, you are passing them off as your ideas, and that is academically dishonest. This is why noting down your sources when making notes is so important so that you know where the ideas came from. If you directly copy someone's words, it must be completely clear that these are their words and not yours. Usually, you will use quotation marks for this in addition to referencing. In general, it is seen as inappropriate to copy large chunks of text from another source, even if you do use quotation marks and references. Referencing is not only used to demonstrate that you are honest and to acknowledge the owner of the ideas that you use. You should also use references to justify key and controversial points in your essays and to demonstrate that you have synthesized the literature to inform your points rather than just written down your random opinions. Note that we suggest that when you are writing an essay, you collect all the information you plan to use in one place first. By making notes in your own words and including some explicit linkage in your notes to the source of information. We then suggest that you try to pick out a message and justify it from these authors. This method makes it easy to avoid plagiarism. In contrast, imagine the student who writes his or her essay directly from several sources, the books or web pages open in front of him. The temptation will be not to think, not to synthesize and critique the literature, not to build an argument, but rather just to copy out one paragraph from here, one paragraph from there. Not only does the resulting essay look terrible, but the student is suddenly in major trouble for plagiarism. There are two main forms of referencing. The first is an author-date format when the name and date is inserted in the text is the reference. The proper name for this type of referencing is the Harvard style, and to confuse things there are various different subtypes. Basically, you put the name of the author and the year that they published the paper which you are referencing in the body of the text, and the full details of their paper, book or website reference at the end in alphabetical order. Examples of usage include in their paper on preparedness for practice, Evans and colleagues highlighted feelings of high anxiety in newly qualified doctors. Anxiety is common in newly qualified doctors. In contrast to Harvard, the Vancouver approach uses numbers to link to references at the end of the text. Depending on which flavor of Vancouver is being used, the number may be a superscript, one or in the text in a round bracket or a square bracket. The British Medical Journal uses the superscript approach. Examples include in their paper on preparedness for practice, Evans and colleagues one highlighted feelings of high anxiety in newly qualified doctors. Anxiety is common in newly qualified doctors 1. Unfortunately, every different form or flavor of referencing has a slightly different format, especially of the references at the end of your paper. Unless you invest in some software that helps referencing or your school provides this for free, it is probably best to stick to pure Harvard format for all your essays or pure Vancouver if your school required you to use a numbered style. A discussion with your library or even a simple web search will provide you with all the information that you need to reference appropriately. Learning more. This book doesn't demonstrate referencing well. It wouldn't rate highly as an academic piece of literature. Most of the text is written from experience and years of working with students, many of them struggling. When we specifically use ideas from other authors, we reference explicitly. And when we have turned to several similar texts to make sure that what we are writing is reasonable, we cite them as references and further reading. Journal articles are the opposite extreme, ensuring often that every point that they make can be referenced to the wider literature. Have a look at some articles in one of the major journals as examples of referencing. You never know, you might get a case for reading the journals on a regular basis. In addition to pointing you toward useful resources, your medical library will run fantastic courses on plagiarism and referencing. Go to one early in your course and consider going again a year or two later. These are fundamental academic skills that will last you a lifetime. Summary: although academic writing is becoming a less common activity on medical courses, being able to communicate clearly in a written form is an essential skill for a doctor. Assignments that require academic writing give you a fantastic opportunity to demonstrate your understanding of the complexities around a topic. More is required than just writing, and good preparation by way of searching for information and planning the key messages and detailed structure of the essay before you starting writing will result in much more chance of success. Questions and answers. Hugh, if I paraphrase something from the book, then it isn't plagiarism, right? A. Grom, if you use someone else's ideas, you must reference them whether they are their words or not. Hugh, I think I have dyslexia as I find writing essays so difficult. What should I do? A. Dyslexia is only one of a range of specific learning difficulties, so expert advice would be advised. You should talk this through with your personal tutor, and they may well be able to organize for you to have an assessment at your university's learning unit. While this is underway, or even if you do have a diagnosis, you may want to concentrate even harder on planning essays and assignments in the way that we have explained. You might find more visual representations, such as mind maps and flowcharts, useful in your planning. Hugh, my tutor has asked me to write up my project for publication. Help. A. In addition to the advice in this chapter, have a look at some articles in the journal that you are aiming for to get a feel for the style and structure required. Make a first stab at it and meet with your tutor. If they have published before then, their mentoring will be a great learning experience for you. Don't forget to put them as a co-author on the first draft.